Moving on. Action items, old business, consideration of scheduling of November 5, 2008 special village board meeting to discuss results of the November 4, 2008 advisory referendum. And that came up in our last meeting, and I said I'd put it on this meeting for discussion and action. Please.
I have a comment about that. As I recall, I was silent on this issue when it came up at the last board meeting because I was trying to figure out why would we meet the morning after the referendum to make any kind of decision. And reading the minutes, it states that that's the last day the village supposedly has control over the nomination. But looking at the timeline and looking at the letter that has come from our consultant, Ted Hill, that does not appear to be the last time that the village is in the driver's seat as to if and when we would ever want to consider withdrawing the nomination. His comment was that he can't imagine the council ever refusing to allow us to withdraw that. And it seems to me that we're to meet the morning after when we have a board meeting 5 days later seems to be creating a false crisis when the way this board typically makes decisions is very thoughtfully and deliberately, and if we waited 5 days till our board meeting, we'd have time to digest the results, think about what they mean, and to put it into perspective, all of the commentary, all of the public input that we have gotten over the past 5 years regarding his nomination. The genesis of the nomination actually is has its concerns of the community, and it started in 2003 with the teardown forum when the assembly hall was filled with over 200 people on a weeknight. From that, our planning committee was formed, our ad hoc planning committee. There was a village-wide survey done. Then those results were, again, very thoughtfully and publicly vetted and very inclusively vetted over several years of referring to the results, making recommendations to the board. And the National Register nomination was a compromise that addressed the entire range of opinion in the village. Where some residents didn't want any kind of preservation or any kind of restrictions, and others wanted some. So this was the compromise that addressed that, and it was a unanimous decision all the way along, all throughout this process, through committees and boards. And so now, in a last-minute attempt to kill it, that it's taking a win-win situation from the village and turning it into what I think could possibly be a win-lose, where where there's an attempt to split the community. I think the history of this project shows that the National Register nomination is the ultimate exercise in democracy. Listening to the community, responding to residents, and I think this referendum is one more piece, and we need to treat that as we've treated every other piece throughout this process, thoughtfully, carefully, deliberately, and to meet the following morning when we've not had time to digest what it means, what it tells us, I think goes against the way we've made all of our other decisions. So I would like to make a motion that we not meet the morning after, but that we consider these results at the board meeting, which is 5 days later, and discuss the results at that point and take them into context with everything else.
If I could clarify just one comment to Trustee Basu's comment. The timeline talks about the village submitting a letter to request withdrawal or deferral.
Right.
The ISAC, the Illinois Historic Sites Advisory Council, would have to take action on that request. Right. The November 5th date is the date the agenda is set by the state at the Historic Preservation Agency. So if the village would request withdrawal prior to the agenda being set, there would not be action by the Historic Sites Advisory Council. That's the distinction between the two dates, and I just want to make sure that in terms of the timeline, that's what I understand from Andrew Heckenkamp
But
at
isn't
the
it
state agency.
up until the 21st? It can be removed without a discussion. After the 21st, there's a discussion.
Once it's on the agenda, my understanding from Andrew Heckenkamp is once he sets the agenda, which his date is roughly 30 days before, so that's why the November 5th date, because it is a December 5th ISAC meeting, is that the agenda is set, that they will have to take some action on the item as it's set on their agenda. If there's a request for a withdrawal or a deferral, the ISAC council would have to take some type of action. There would have to be a motion, a second, and a vote on that item to either honor the request for withdrawal or the request to defer.
But
So there's
again, I can't imagine that they're going to tell a municipality that, no, we're not going to honor your request to
I
withdraw
wasn't
this.
trying to express what the state staff or the ISAC council would be doing. I'm just explaining the difference between those two dates, according to
I
Andrew
understand your
Heckenkamp.
difference, and my point is, I don't think that means we lose control. I think we're always in the driver's seat, and particularly listening, reading the comments from our consultant, who has, as I recall, like 30 years' experience at the state, and was Andrew Heckenkamp's boss. So, and deputy director of the Illinois Historic Preservation Agency, and if he's telling us that we don't have to worry about being able to withdraw this whenever we want,
Right.
again, I think it sends a very bad message to the community that we view this as a crisis, and instead of being able to talk about it at our regular board meeting. Anyway, I have a motion on the floor.
I'll second that motion. And I understand, we're the ones sponsoring the nomination. If we decide we don't want to sponsor it anymore, they have no nomination. So that's the way I understand it. So I don't see that that's an issue.
You say we,
The village.
the village board.
Yeah, the village and the village board, yes.
But my understanding from what Brad has gotten from Andrew is that's true up until November 5th. After November 5th, once it's on the agenda, even if we say no, it would stay on their agenda until they voted off.
Right, it's on
So,
the agenda.
it's
I
not
actually
up until
think-
we say no. If we said no at our, which hopefully we wouldn't, but if we said no at our, of course.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that we still have control. If we request that it be removed from the agenda, they will remove it from the agenda, is what I'm being told. They would have to vote to do that, yes. But the other thing is, Brad, are you sure about, I think the 21st is the date that we have to have a letter to them because there's like a 10-day change of agenda sort of thing, right? Or change of.
No, my understanding is the agenda is set, has to be set 30
Right,
days
it's sent
in
on the
advance.
5th in the packet.
The
Right.
date to be able to request that there would be some action was the 21st. That's
Right.
according to my understanding from Andrew.
Oh,
That
okay.
if it's not on the agenda, November 5th, the ISAC will have no reason to take any action. But if it is on the agenda, the board could still submit a letter requesting a deferral or requesting a withdrawal, but the ISAC council would have to take into consideration that letter, that request from the village as the sponsor, and take some action.
Right.
Okay,
Okay, good.
then what was the purpose of the special meeting on November 5?
The purpose of, in my opinion, the purpose of the special meeting is that is the last, the way I'm understanding the facts, that is the last day Kenilworth has control of the application in terms of taking, letting our residents know that we're listening from the perspective of getting those referendum results. They may be, as we've talked about, a 40-60 or something that is not super definitive, in which case it comes to this board to talk about. We would choose to talk about it on the 5th, as well as talk about it probably at our November meeting. But if the results were definitive in one way or the other, they may choose to, the board may choose action one way or the other. And it seems that that is the last day that we have the ability to dictate it. And rather than leaving it in the hands of someone at the state board to say, I choose to make a motion to take it off or to keep it on or whatever, it's our decision up until close of business on November 5th.